Thank you all. Apologies for a bit of a delay. The school board had many meetings today, and a few ran behind, so we're just catching up. We ask for the courtesy of board members, staff, and members of the public that you please silence your cell phones. Good afternoon, and welcome to Orange County School Board's work session, which had been scheduled today, Thursday, August 25th, 2026, for the purpose of discussing the OCPS 2030 update, as well as the superintendent search. The public will not have an opportunity to participate in this work session to provide public comment because this is not a regularly scheduled school board meeting. No action will be taken, and there will be no open public period in which the public normally addresses the school board on relevant topics that are related to the work of the school board. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. I believe all board members are present except for the chair. As a reminder, board members will not engage in outside electronic or digital communication during the meeting, so we must focus on the matters immediately before us. To my fellow board members and district staff, when speaking, please make sure your microphone is turned on and speak directly so our YouTube and Orange TV viewers can hear you clearly. Again, thank you so much for participating in today's meeting. We will now pause for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Now for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will now turn it over to Dr. Vasquez to get us started.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'm very excited about this afternoon's work session. As you know, we went through a revamping of our strategic plan and developed OCPS 2030. The process for developing the strategic plan was different. We received input from various stakeholders, families, employees, students on our portrait of a graduate, and that really drove the work of our strategic plan. And so I'm excited to present our first year's outcomes, and I am going to turn it over to Dr. Border, and he will introduce his team.
Thanks, Dr. Vasquez. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Salamanca, members of the board. Very excited to come and share the outcome of year one of OCPS 2030. And really want to echo on what Dr. Vasquez shared. I want to really commend this board for the way that you went about the design of OCPS 2030. You engaged industry partners, you engaged your families, your staff, your students, which resulted in a bold plan that really situates the board for the current opportunities that we have in public education. You have 5 key performance indicators that are focused on opportunities that we all have in public education: chronic absenteeism, recruitment and retention of staff, ensuring that our families are choosing OCPS for education, student achievement, and then also our first ever portrait of a graduate, which not only focuses on literacy and numeracy, but it also includes 7 durable power skills that students are going to need to be successful in life. You'll see today that we have that data that schools are able to access at the school level. And while we're very excited about the progress we've made in just 1 year, I think that having the data at the school level positions us for exponential growth moving forward. You also have key performance indicator teams that are cross-collaborative. All divisions of the organization, they meet quarterly, and they look at our measures of success and strategies to see if they're working, and then also how they can adjust them. And then additionally, the plan positions the board to adjust those measurements of success and strategies and the goals with those on an annual basis, which is a new feature in this plan and part of what we're excited to talk to you about today. So I will turn it over to 2 incredible team members that I get to work alongside each day, Ben Allen and Casey Libersat, who will walk you through the presentation. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon.
Hi there. All right, thank you, Dr. Border. Today's presentation includes a brief overview of OCPS 2030, a review of the 25-26 Key Performance Indicators, or KPI results, updates for 26-27, and the structures in place to support continued implementation and reporting. Okay, we will begin with a brief overview, including the core components that guide district-wide priorities and help align work across schools, departments, and divisions. OCPS 2030 is designed as an interconnected strategic plan built around 5 key performance indicators. Rather than treating district goals as separate initiatives, the plan connects work across schools, departments, and divisions so progress in one area can support progress in others. This structure helps the district use data, stakeholder feedback, and continuous improvement practices to stay focused on student outcomes. The OCPS Portrait of a Graduate continues to act as the North Star in our district as our district works to achieve the goals of our strategic plan. This portrait is such a vital piece of the plan because it was created in partnership with our families, staff, students, and industry sector leaders. Our industry leaders specifically helped our district have a true understanding of the key traits all our graduates need to be successful after high school, whether that path takes them to a university, a technical college, or straight into the workforce. Our portrait sets the expectations that OCPS will prepare our students with strong academic foundations in literacy and mathematics. It focuses on ensuring our graduates leave with essential skills in communication, critical thinking and problem solving, personal and social responsibility, as well as professionalism and collaboration. It also aims to equip our students with workplace readiness qualities relative to career preparedness, technology skills, and bilingual abilities. While these attributes are measured when students graduate, students in all grade levels can exhibit the skills from the Portrait of a Graduate in a variety of ways. The foundation of OCPS 2030 began with the development and school board approval of the Portrait of a Graduate in 23-24. In 2024-25, the board and district staff developed the strategic plan, including updates to all of the aspects of the plan. And beginning in 25-26, our cross-functional KPI teams were established to monitor progress toward our goals. Since then, our KPI teams have engaged in an ongoing cycle of continuous improvement. Each year, teams analyze data related to the strategies and measures of success, review progress, identify opportunities for improvement, update action plans as needed, and report outcomes to the school board and stakeholders. The circular arrow illustrates that OCPS 2030 is not a one-time initiative. It is a continuous process of measuring results, learning from data, and refining our work to ensure progress toward our vision and goals through 2030 and beyond. Our OCPS vision centers the work. Every student graduates prepared and inspired for a thriving future. The words prepared and inspired are important because they speak to both readiness and belief in what is possible for every one of our students. The mission describes how we move toward that vision. By working with families and the community to empower students through strong academics, essential life skills, and meaningful opportunities inside and outside the classroom. Our values guide how the district approaches the work. Safety, people-first relationships, integrity, collaboration, and excellence shape our decisions, interactions, and service to students, staff, families, and the community. OCPS 2030 also includes district commitments that describe what we aim to provide consistently, which is high expectations for student mastery, safe and supportive environments, a purposeful and student-centered team, efficient and fiscally sound operations, and an engaged community. These commitments help keep implementation focused on both student success and organizational effectiveness. The market differentiators describe what makes OCPS a strong choice for students and families, including neighborhood schools, academic and extracurricular opportunities, support services, facilities, and individualized learning options. These elements are especially important as the district works to retain families and strengthen confidence in OCPS schools. In the launch year, OCPS focused on building the infrastructure needed for long-term implementation. This included launching OCPS 2030 district-wide, finalizing KPI targets, developing dashboards, identifying data contacts, holding quarterly KPI team meetings, analyzing strategies and measures of success, and establishing a board reporting process. These structures now position the district for stronger monitoring and continuous improvement in year 2. I'm going to now turn the presentation over to Ben to review launch year KPI results and the 26-27 targets.
All right, thank you, Casey. For each KPI, I will briefly summarize the targets, the 25-26 results, and the next steps reflected in the updated strategic plan. This slide shows the public-facing KPI dashboard available on the OCPS website. It provides the 2030 goal, the most current district-wide data, and the date of the most recent update for each KPI. In addition, internal dashboards will provide district and school leaders with more detailed views to support monitoring and planning. We will go into more detail about each KPI in the upcoming slides. KPI 1 measures the percentage of graduates who meet at least 5 of the 9 Portrait of a Graduate attributes. The 2030 goal is 60%, with annual targets designed to move the district toward that outcome over time. For KPI 1, the 25-26 target was 34%, and the result was 36%, exceeding the target by 2 percentage points. Our 26-27 target is 40%. The internal KPI 1 dashboard is designed for district and school administrators. It provides a more detailed view of the portrait components to support monitoring, planning, and continuous improvement. Because this is such a large part of the district's strategic plan and involves many moving pieces, the next several slides will provide more detail about the Portrait of a Graduate calculations and outcomes for each of the 9 attributes. Details for the KPI 1 calculation were finalized during the drafting of the OCPS 2030 strategic plan. We reviewed several options and applied the calculations to the graduation cohorts from 2023 and 2024 to determine meaningful targets for this KPI. The Portrait of a Graduate outcomes are calculated for graduates within each cohort. Non-graduates and dropouts are excluded. For official KPI 1 calculations, we use graduation cohort files provided by FDOE's Bureau of Accountability Reporting. These files include updates made during the graduation cohort corrections process and are the same data files that determine school and district graduation rates. For unofficial KPI 1 calculations, we use student withdrawal data from Skyward. Unofficial cohort data has not yet been subjected to the same level of data cleaning that happens during the cohort corrections process, so these numbers may continue to change throughout the year. Charter school students are not included in the district's KPI calculations. Alternative sites, ESE centers, and OCPS-operated virtual schools are included in the data. Outcomes for this KPI do lag by 1 year. The 25-26 KPI 1 outcomes are based on the class of 2025. Some of the data for the class of 2026 is available now, though. Other attributes have data that will become available later in the school year, such as after Survey 5 is submitted this fall, after official graduation relates are released in the winter, and when school grades are released next summer. Because of this, unofficial class of 2026 outcomes are based on only 6 of the 9 attributes that you'll see today. The remaining attributes will be updated throughout the year. For reference, the left side of the screen also indicates the 9 attributes of the Portrait of a Graduate, grouped into the 3 main areas of academic foundations, essential skills, and workplace readiness. Again, for a student to count positively toward KPI 1, they must be a graduate who has met at least 5 of the 9 attributes. The class of 2025, which is the first data point in our baseline for this KPI, had 36.0% of the graduates meet at least 5 of the 9 attributes. The class of 2026 is positioned to show substantial increase from this baseline. With data available for only 6 of the 9 attributes, 31.9% of graduates have already met the criteria for this KPI. Another 47.6 are just 1 attribute away. Many of those will likely increase as we receive additional data this year. Let's take a closer look at each attribute. Within academic foundations, the first attribute is literacy. This is measured by determining the percentage of graduates who meet the grade 10 ELA requirement through state assessments or a concordant score by the time they graduate. This also includes students who take the state's alternate assessment. The class of 2025 saw 89.9% of its graduates meet this attribute, and the 10% of students who graduated but did not meet this attribute were mostly explained by students with assessment waivers, exceptional learners who deferred graduation, and English learners who entered a U.S. school within the last 2 years and demonstrated proficiency through alternate means. The unofficial results for the class of 2026 show a higher percentage of graduates meeting this attribute at 91.9%. Again, these results are unofficial and may change throughout the year. The next attribute within academic foundations is mathematics, which is measured by students meeting the Algebra 1 graduation assessment requirement, or a comparative score. The class of 2025 saw 92.4% of its graduates meet this requirement, and the class of 2026 is currently at 94%. The main reasons for graduates who did not meet this requirement yet still graduated are assessment waivers and deferred graduation. There are a small number of students who were affected by a change from FSA-aligned assessments to BEST-aligned assessments in 22-23, potentially demonstrating on-grade outcomes on the FSA score, but slightly below-grade outcomes when scores were recalculated to BEST, and that's just a nuance of this particular cohort. Within essential skills, the communication attribute is measured by several potential pathways. Students can demonstrate this attribute by passing 3 or more advanced study courses, which are AP, IB, or ACE, passing 3 or more dual enrollment courses, enrolling in speech or debate for 3 years, or completing 300 clock hours of career dual enrollment. The class of 2025 had 41.5% of its graduates meet at least one of these pathways. Data for this calculation comes from school grades files, which are not released until July, the year after graduation. So we will not have data for the class of 2026 until July 2027. The next attribute within essential skills is critical thinking and problem solving. This attribute is based on students scoring at least a 27 on the ACT or a 1240 on the SAT. Earning an associate's degree is also a way to demonstrate this attribute. The assessment scores were chosen to align with the 85th percentile on those tests at the time the metrics were set. For the class of 2025, 16.0% of graduates met the criteria, and the class of 2026 is showing slightly higher outcomes with 17.4% meeting criteria, and we don't yet have data for associate's degree completion, so that number may rise. The next attribute is personal and social responsibility. This is measured by students completing at least 75 volunteer or work hours. This aligns with the Bright Futures Florida Medallion Scholars requirement of 75 volunteer hours or 100 work hours. The class of 2025 had 25.4% of its graduates meet this target, and the class of 2026 is currently showing 28.4%. The last attribute under essential skills is professionalism and collaboration. This is measured by student discipline referrals, or more appropriately, the lack of student discipline referrals. Graduates are considered to have met this attribute if they have no level 2, 3, or 4 infractions in grade 12 and no level 4 infractions during high school. The class of 2025 had 88.6% of its graduates meet this standard, and the class of 2026 is currently at 87.9%. Under workforce readiness, the first attribute is career preparedness. This is measured by students completing a post-secondary plan in the Zello platform. Prior to the class of 2026, graduation plans were not tracked in Zello. The class of 2026 is showing with 96.5% of graduates having a plan in the system. The next attribute under workplace readiness is technology skills. This is based on the percentage of graduates who passed at least one industry certification on the FDOE-approved list. Data for this attribute are not available until after Survey 5 is finalized, which occurs at the end of October. We will be able to update this with preliminary information for the class of 2026 once we receive that data. For the class of 2025, 37.5% of graduates met the attribute. The final attribute under workplace readiness is bilingual abilities. This is measured by the percentage of graduates who complete a seal of biliteracy, either a silver or a gold designation or both, score 3 or higher on an AP foreign language assessment, or score 50 or higher on a college-level examination program or a CLEP foreign language assessment. Data for this calculation is not available until after Survey 5 closes in October for the class of 2026. The class of 2025 had 18.3% of its graduates meet this standard. KPI 2 focuses on grade level performance with a 2030 goal of 55% of students scoring level 3 or higher on all state assessments included in the FDOE accountability system. This KPI measures outcomes differently than other state assessment metrics. The goal with this KPI is for each student to show on-grade performance in all tested areas. For example, a student in grade 3 would need to score level 3 or higher on both the English language arts and the mathematics assessment to count positively toward this metric. This metric does not include students in grades K through 2. The strategies shown on the slide also reflect the district's focus on high-quality instruction, literacy intervention, resource utilization, and data access. For KPI 2, the 2025-26 target was 49%, and the result was 51%, exceeding the target by 2 percentage points. The 2026-27 target is 50%, so the district enters year 2 already above this, the next annual target, while continuing to focus on sustained improvement. Because students must reach grade level or above in all tested subject areas included for their grade level or course, our internal dashboards break results down by subject and grade level. This helps leaders identify where support is strongest and where additional attention may be needed. KPI 3 focuses on OCPS as the top choice for families as measured by the percentage of students residing in a school attendance zone who attended their zone school or an OCPS school. The 2030 goal is 89%, with strategies centered around learning environments, family and community engagement, technology, and enrollment retention. For KPI 3, the 2025-26 target was 87%, and the result was 87%, meaning the district met its launch year target. The 2026-27 target increases to 88%. The KPI 3 internal dashboard provides a more detailed view of enrollment patterns by grade level and attendance status, including students attending in zone, students attending an OCPS magnet program out of zone, students who transferred to another school, and students who are not attending OCPS. This helps the district better understand family choice patterns. KPI 4 focuses on staff retention with a 2030 goal of retaining 92% of staff annually. The strategies shown here focus on affordable housing, retention, hiring efficiency, and stakeholder feedback. For KPI 4, the 2025-26 target was 90%, and the result was 87%, which did not meet the target. For 26-27, the target remains 90%, reinforcing the continued importance of retention strategies. It's also worth remembering that the 2025-26 school year saw declines in student enrollment, the consolidation of 7 schools, and retirements throughout the year. KPI 4 data are accessed through the Vizier platform managed by Human Resources. Using Vizier allows district and school administrators to view retention data through an existing system while maintaining a consistent source of information. The retention views include district-wide retention and instructional staff. Non-instructional or classified staff and administrators and other professional staff are also included. These groupings allow leaders to examine retention patterns across employee categories. KPI 5 focuses on attendance with a 2030 goal of 88% of students attending school for at least 90% of scheduled instructional days. The strategies address student engagement, school climate and culture, family communication, staff wellness, and early identification of students showing patterns of chronic absenteeism. For this KPI, we originally used state chronic absenteeism data, which lagged by 1 year. FDOE has not yet published data for the 24-25 school year. Because of the team's work with data owners on internal metrics, we were able to switch our calculation source to use internal data. We will also be able to update this KPI on a more frequent basis as a result of this change. For KPI 5, the 2025-26 target was 80%, and the result was 77%, which did not meet the target. The 26-27 target increases to 82%, making attendance a continued priority for Year 2 implementation. The KPI 5 dashboard allows leaders to monitor the percentage of students attending at least 90% of scheduled instructional days and examine changes by school and over time. A district comparison page is also available, although comparisons should be interpreted carefully because chronic absenteeism definitions may vary by district. With our new data, we will not have the same comparison points with other large districts in Florida. These comparisons were also, again, not apples to apples because the differences in ways that each district can define what counts as a daily absence. We will update this dashboard to focus on internal data that is more relevant to district and school leaders. Next, Casey will talk you through the updates to the plan for the 26-27 school year.
All right, thanks, Ben. We will now move from launch year results to the approved updates for 26-27. These updates reflect what KPI teams and district leaders learned from the first year of implementation. During 25-26, KPI teams reviewed data, evaluated existing strategies and measures of success, and developed recommended updates. Strategic Improvement synthesized those recommendations and shared them with district leadership and the school board. The approved updates are now reflected in the 26-27 strategic plan. KPI 1 was updated to strengthen student preparation for life after graduation by expanding measures related to advanced coursework, post-secondary planning, community service, and resiliency. The revisions broaden the focus from participation alone to include student outcomes, counselor engagement, and supports that help students develop as well-rounded graduates. KPI 2 was enhanced to more closely connect academic achievement with effective instructional practices, literacy development, resource management, and data-informed decision-making. New measures were added to monitor PLC implementation, reading outcomes, grant utilization, and staff use of key reports, while the nutrition strategy was moved to KPI 3. KPI 3 was expanded to focus more broadly on the student and family experience by adding measures related to school climate, nutrition, transportation, community engagement, technology, and choice program participation. The updates shift the emphasis from enrollment marketing alone to creating engaging, high-quality learning environments that encourage families to choose and remain in OCPS. KPI 4 was strengthened with additional strategies and measures focused on employee recruitment, retention, professional growth, affordable housing, workplace satisfaction, and operational efficiency. The revisions also introduce a new focus on artificial intelligence and technology tools to support staff effectiveness and district operations. KPI 5 was revised to address attendance through a broader focus on student engagement, family involvement, staff wellness, school climate, and early intervention supports. New measures provide greater insight into chronic absenteeism by examining contributing factors, family communication efforts, and the connection between attendance and student outcomes. As OCPS enters year 2 of implementation, the focus is shifting from building the foundation to strengthening communication, transparency, engagement, and evidence of progress. Moving forward, the district will place greater emphasis on communicating more frequently, highlighting what is working, connecting with schools, and showcasing both data and examples of implementation. This will help stakeholders see not only the results, but also the work driving progress. OCPS 2030 will remain active through ongoing stakeholder communications, a Canvas course for new district managers, quarterly KPI team meetings, school board progress updates, and an annual review of strategies and measures of success. These structures help keep the plan visible, monitored, and connected to district priorities. Communication and engagement will continue throughout the year. Planned touchpoints include Year 2 launch, progress and engagement resources, mid-year reflection supports, and spring stakeholder engagement materials. Each touchpoint is designed to support alignment, share progress, and gather feedback, all of which help to reinforce the connections that are so important to the success of the strategic plan. The OCPS 2030 IMS site serves as the internal hub for strategic plan information, KPI resources, dashboards, and implementation materials. It will continue to support consistent access to information for district and school administrators. The next several slides will show a full-size version of the site that is available for all employees. The page starts with our banner, followed by quick links and items that showcase OCPS 2030 in different ways. Moving down, we can find the components of the strategic plan, vision, mission, values, statements, market differentiators, commitments, and key performance indicators, followed by an overview of the portrait of a graduate. To support consistent communications, Strategic Improvement developed turnkey materials for school staff, district staff, family, and community audiences. These materials help to tailor the message while keeping the core OCPS 2030 information aligned across stakeholder groups. Last year's launch activity invited stakeholders to connect their work to the words prepare, inspire, and empower from the vision and mission. This year, the engagement activity shifts the focus to the 5 KPIs so stakeholders can better identify where their work contributes to the strategic plan. The activity is designed to help stakeholders identify the KPI most connected to their work. Responses are anonymous with optional demographic questions to help Strategic Improvement better understand how different stakeholder groups connect with OCPS 2030. Participants may also choose to provide an email address if they would like more information. This is an example of the stakeholder engagement activity used in the turnkeys and communications. It asks participants to identify the KPI where they feel most connected to district progress. We will close with the timeline for KPI coordinating teams and how their work will support monitoring, reflection, and future recommendations. KPI coordinating teams will meet throughout the year to monitor strategies and measures of success, identify areas of concern, recognize areas of progress, and develop proposed updates for future years. Strategic Improvement will work with KPI co-leads to synthesize recommendations for leadership review and future board reporting. At the July KPI coordinating team meetings, members reviewed the Year 2 focus, clarified team roles, explored dashboards and data connections, and began aligning work to the OCPS learning agenda. The meeting reinforced the role of KPI teams as thought partners, reviewers, and recommendation makers in the continuous improvement process. The July meeting also introduced the first content expert spotlight featuring the research department in the OCPS learning agenda. This helped KPI teams connect data review, evidence-based decision-making, and research questions aligned to district KPIs. This concludes the Strategic Improvement Update. I'll now turn it back over to Dr. Vasquez for closing comments and board discussion.
Thank you, Casey, Ben, and Harold. We appreciate all the work in the development and then the implementation of our strategic plan. Board members, I hope that you have found the data interesting, that you have been able to identify how we have tried very closely to align our metrics to our portrait of a graduate. We move beyond just test scores, but we take a deep dive into those skills that our stakeholders have identified as essential when children are graduating from Orange County Public Schools. With that, I'll turn it, we're anxious to hear any comments or questions that the board might have.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. We do have a couple questions, starting with Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this great presentation. It has a lot of information in it that I'm still trying to process and digest, so I'm sure I'll come back around for more questions. I love that I appreciate all the hard work that you guys did in putting the strategic plan. I know that as a board and collectively as a district, we worked extremely hard to create a strategic plan that really aligned with our values, with the values of our community, with the commitments that we wanted to make to our families and our students. And so it's great to see, good, bad, or indifferent, how we're doing. So I appreciate all of your work on this. I do have some questions. I'm going to have more because I have, and yeah, it's a lot to.
We can come back around, don't worry.
I know. Well, I'll ask these first. So in Zello, when we look at, and I'm on slide 26. So we were talking about workforce readiness, and I know when we look at career preparedness, and we were really, our biggest KPI was the Zello platform and how many graduation plans were in the Zello program. I'm wondering, since this is around career readiness, or maybe this goes in another slide, do we look at the amount of students when they enter college having to take remedial classes? Is that do we look at that in any of our KPIs on the amount of students that are entering remedial classes versus those that don't, and are we moving the needle on that sector?
Yeah, so that's not currently part of one of the metrics, but that's certainly something that we can investigate to see.
You have to speak a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Yep. I got to get in the zone here. That's not something that's currently in the metric, but it's something that we could certainly look to see what data would be available for one of our measures of success, and looking at strategies with that. So we can definitely take that back and see what we can do here.
Thank you. I do think that's important, especially when we're building out the portrait of a graduate. Like we have these very lofty goals, which is admirable for a portrait of a graduate. But if we have portrait of a graduates that are still taking remedial classes in college, then maybe that's something we need to look at and tweak just to ensure that we're kind of really meeting that high quality education that's in our strategic plan. My next question is the very next slide, 27. So I know this is technology skills, but it's any industry certification, correct? So if you get any industry certification whatsoever, it goes, so it doesn't have to be in the technology field. I thought that was the case. I just want to confirm. 37.5% of our students are graduating earned an industry certification. I think that speaks volumes for our CD department and how hard they're working and what a great job they're doing. And then on the very next slide, 28, I stayed in order.
We'll go slide by slide.
Yeah. I'm curious that 18.3% looks low, that meet the standard, but I'm wondering if a better calculation would be, question first, does this 18.3% reflect just the students that took these classes and then did well on them, or does this 18.3 represent 18.3 of all graduates?
That's 18.3% of all graduates. So it's, for this one, it typically is going to be a multi-year progression of coursework that they would have to go through to earn this. So the class of 25 certainly had that opportunity, but as we go deeper into the plan, students will have more and more opportunities in that progression.
Okay. I think it's interesting to note for anybody who's listening, that if we were just to take the percentage of those who actually took those classes and how they scored, we would probably see a higher percentage of those who performed well. So I just want to kind of make that statement, because I don't want people to think, oh, only 18% of the people taking these classes are scoring a level 3 or higher or clipping out. I'm sure the number's much higher if we were just to. And then looking at 34, where are my glasses? The 87%, that 80% attending OCPS. So 80% of all resides currently choose OCPS or chose OCPS during this? year?
Yes. As of the date that we pulled the data, yes, it was 87% that is either residing in their zone, transferring to another OCPS school, attending a magnet outside of their zone. Any OCPS-operated school counts positively towards this metric. The data that we do not have available for us here are students who are attending private schools, who are fully funding it without using FES or any of the other state scholarship opportunities, because we just don't have the data for those students. But it's 87% of all of the students that we have data for.
Okay. But we have data on students that reside. Like, we know those who reside versus attend.
We have.
So we could make
I'm sorry.
the assumption that if you reside and aren't going to an OCPS school, that you're either probably taking advantage of the voucher or you're going to a private or a charter school. Is that accurate?
We don't necessarily know all students who reside, if they've
Okay.
never been part of our system, or if they have potentially moved and returned. If there's any kind of movement in their address location, that can cause some issues with our data availability there. So again, it's not a complete picture of all the students who reside. It's as many as we have data for, with the limitations within our existing data scope.
So if we can get the state, Tallahassee, to actually add a student authentication number to every student, then we would be able to get accurate data on what our enrollment is with all the children that reside within Orange County.
I would say, assuming that all of the numbers matched and lined up and all of the data quality was accurate enough.
Okay. Because I'm looking at 87% and I'm thinking, well, we should be celebrating that. I mean, I know that we have declining enrollment and it doesn't look pretty out there, but 87% are choosing some type of choice. I mean, I think it really speaks to the amount of choice that we have within Orange County Public Schools and the fact that they can attend different variations, different magnets. I think that's fabulous. And then I think I have two more questions. On page 39, when we're talking about students' attendance, I'm wondering if we need to look at this metric, just because how we have it defined is school for at least 90% of the scheduled instructional days. So, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but so for example, I'll give you an example. If we have someone who is a voucher student that is coming to us and they're paying for 2 classes, do we just look at those 2 classes for instructional time and determine their attendance rate? Or would they not be counted because they're not a fully enrolled full-time student?
That one I would want to go back and confirm for voucher students specifically. So if they're not enrolled for a full day, the numbers and the method may look a little bit different. So I would want to confirm that and can send for all the follow-up information with that.
Because I think that I think things are moving so quickly here in the state of Florida, between AI and technology and just attendance and innovation and how we offer products to our families, that we may need to rethink how we are validating attendance. Because if we have kids that are coming and our students that are taking 2 classes or taking half day, then I think if they're there the majority of the time, that should be reflected in our attendance because they're there. And I think that speaks better to the engagement of our students than just maybe how we're measuring it. I mean, we just need to move with the flow, I guess. And then finally, which I already stated, was the attendance, that we just really need to look for different ways to really look at the attendance. And when we look at, and I've said this before, when we look at attendance for teachers and staff, because that is as big of an impact on student achievement than I even believe that students attending school sometime. So just really looking at that, how many times are we taking teachers out of our classroom for a variety of reasons, whether that be for PD or I know that they go for other trainings and different things, and just really ensuring that it's things that they want to go to. It's, professional development that they want to go to and not professional development that we're telling them they need to go to, and that we're asking their opinion on what type of professional development they would like to see. Because if we're going to take them out of the classroom, we need to make sure that every second of whatever training we're giving them is being impactful and make a difference in the classroom. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gallo. I am up next. Only a couple of questions, and I'll probably come back around as well. One is on staff retention, specifically in classified non-instructional staff. That seems to be our biggest drop. Resignation rate being 11-10% there when I look compared to other staff. What's driving this? What's going on here? Is this about the rate that it's always been? Is this, it feels very high to me to have that resignation rate, but especially compared with all other staff. Just curious if we're getting a little bit on the why behind it.
Thanks for that question, Board Member Salamanca. We'll follow up with Rob's team to get some longitudinal data. My suspicion is that the rates are similar to what you've seen in the past. Keep in mind, we did just lose several employees due to TPS status, and so there was that impact. But I think that based upon the retention recruitment rates I've seen through the years, and it's kind of held steady for the most part, I think that this is probably consistent to what you've seen. I think some of the contributing factors, of course, are the market and what certain positions compensation is. We've struggled in the past with our bus drivers and custodians and maintenance workers and things like that. We outsource some of our maintenance positions,
Right.
and those kind of things. So I think that those are certainly contributing factors, but I don't think the data is a large difference from what it's been over the years.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that was I didn't know kind of what to compare it to on that. It just stood out to me as a much higher number than all the other staff.
May I also remember we consolidated 7 schools, and although we were able to place all of the instructional staff, that was not true of all of the classified. For example, there were, let's say, a secretary bookkeeper. Well, every school just has one, and so if there weren't any vacancies, they then would have been let go. So that's also an anomaly for this past year.
Got it. I guess in terms then of maybe data clarity here, I view us making a choice of consolidation or TPS, which is government making a choice for us, very different than resignation. So I would want that to be captured as a different, right? So if someone says, I am quitting, or I'm going to a different job, like that's how I would define it. Or retirement obviously is different here. There's other exit rate. So I don't know if other exit rate is where we're capturing some of this, but I think maybe definitionally, I hope it wouldn't hurt our resignation rate for it to be something that's out of our control like that.
Yep, and I can also clarify the difference there is a difference between the retention rate and the resignation rate. So retention is looking at employees who were here on July 1st, who are still here on July 1st through June 30th for whatever reason. If they've left for whatever reason, they would count negatively there, as opposed to getting into the second, third, and fourth rows, resignation, retirement, other. That's where you're getting into more coding, like you're talking about, where one type of exit will be coded as a resignation versus a retirement versus other. So the retention is a little bit more of an inclusive category, whether it's employee choice or employer
Right.
choice.
I guess, but then in that case, it wouldn't add up, right? 100 minus 91
Right,
gives me a
because
different number that
there are
the
some-
next 3 don't add up
There are
to.
some differences in the time periods, which those resignation, retention, and other exits, that's kind of a more contextual information. The number we look at for the KPI is the retention rate, which is that calendar-bound year, whereas
Got
the
it.
other ones might be within a sliding window.
Okay. Helpful. Then, yeah, I think that might be like a data tagging question. But yeah, I'd want to understand, where staff is choosing to leave versus when there's other circumstance, TPS being one of them, where that's not their choice. Okay, let's see. What was the other one I had? This is a bit on the KPI team timeline. So if you're finalizing Feb 2027, will the board see the draft of the proposals before they're finalized, or is this only after?
Yep, it's before. So this is a similar timeline to what we did for this cycle around, where the KPI teams proposed some revised language to the board. There we had a planning session, I believe it was in January of
Got it, okay.
2026. And then we had several conversations back and forth between board, cabinet, and KPI coordinating teams to land the language. So that's kind of where that February timeline fits in with the overall.
Okay, got it, yeah, because I see leadership feedback, I just didn't know where kind of the board pops up. I know you guys will definitely keep us updated, I just didn't see it all the time, so I don't know if that was, maybe next time just add that so we know when the board comes in and not. Those are it for now. I'm sure I'll have a couple other ones, but to my other members, Member Vanos.
Thank you so much. I might have to come around again too, but I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for doing this, and thank you for sharing it with us early enough to really digest it, so I appreciate that. The first question I had has to do kind of with the combination of the, this is on page 17, 18, 19, the sort of SAT with the volunteer hours, because for like the SAT, ACT, we aligned those numbers with, I guess, the 85th percentile of the tests. But then for the volunteer hours, we're aligning it with Bright Futures. So I was just, I don't know, it might make sense to align everything with Bright Futures, which I know would be decreasing the SAT, ACT score, because I think for the medallion, it is lower than that 85th percent. But I'm just wondering for sort of like consistency, if that makes sense. And I'll also just put a plug in here. I think it would be really helpful to be tracking our students who get the Bright Futures scholarships, because I think that is incredibly important, and we can probably, I think that's just an important measure. Okay, my next question is on page 26, and it's about Zello. And I guess my question is, when we're trying to measure workforce readiness and career preparedness through having a post-secondary plan in Zello, but we don't really know if having the post-secondary plan in Zello is actually effective unless you're going back to people and measuring whether it helped them with workforce readiness and career preparedness. I think we're sort of making an assumption that, and I think some people probably take the Zello thing really seriously, and my guess is a large majority of students do not take it seriously. So I think it would just be helpful to find a way to actually measure whether it does prepare students for the things that we think it does. Okay, my next question was on page 28, and it's about the foreign language. And I guess my question is, we're focusing this as one of our measures of Portrait of a Graduate, and since we are doing that, I would just want to make sure that we are not eliminating foreign language classes. I don't know the answer to that. If we are, I know at my children's school, they have eliminated some of the foreign language classes. So I just want to make sure if we're measuring this as something we deem important, we're not also simultaneously eliminating the classes that students would need to take to get that certification.
May I? There are two primary reasons why a class would not be offered. The first and most important is that they don't have a certified teacher, and I think that's what we've been seeing in some of the courses that have been discontinued. And then the second is that they may not have an interest. For example, we had a high school that wanted to offer Chinese, and the number dropped to maybe 15, and that they couldn't sustain it. However, and I'm not saying this is the best option for learning a second language, but a student can always take the course through OCPS, whether it's on campus or at their home. But those are the two factors that contribute to the courses not being offered.
And I appreciate that, and that does make sense. I guess I'm just wondering if maybe I'll just say, if we see an increase in that happening such that we need to cut those classes, maybe we look at this again, because if we're not offering it, I'm not sure we should be having it as one of our main metrics. Thank you, yes. Okay, my next question is relating to page 32 and KPI 3. So I'm just confused on this one. So, because the first page says you're measuring the people who attend their zoned school, which is 89%, but then the third slide says, or it looks like, maybe I might just be reading this wrong, that it's if you're attending an in-zone, magnet, or another school within OCPS. So I'm just a little bit confused about what it's actually measuring.
Yep. So that was from when we originally drafted the KPI. We were looking at students who were attending within their zone only. And then through those conversations when we were setting targets and establishing the KPIs and finalizing, where we expanded the definition to include transfers and magnet schools, any student attending an OCPS school. So it's a matter of the definition is broader than the statement of the KPI itself. That's something we can certainly look at to just update the KPI language so that it reflects attending an OCPS school instead of attending a zoned school.
Okay, I think that would be just so they're consistent. And then I guess the second piece of this conversation is I'm not sure how useful it is when we don't have all of the information of the people residing in the area, because we're really not, like, when you don't have the total number of students, because whether they're going to voucher or homeschool or whatever, it's hard to really know what this number means because we don't really know where all of them went. So, okay. Okay, this is 39. This is also on some of the comments that Member Gallo brought up on absenteeism. We talk about instructional days. I think one of the big issues for high school students is instructional days includes testing days. I wish it didn't, because I think if you're not testing on that day, you're not going to school, but it counts as an instructional day, but you're really not missing, so in theory, you would be getting instruction on that day in the block for one of the classes you're studying for. I know that is what, in theory, yes. But I'm just going to say, I wish that we did not have to include the testing days as part of this measure, because I do think that's a large number of the missed days. I'm almost done. Nope.
I'm wondering if we can, if we can actually go back, pull the data. I would do the high school as the one we start with, and we can identify by school which days were testing days, and then do the calculation without them and see if there's a significant shift in the percentage.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be great.
I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Ramos. Member Ferron.
Thank you. Mine was really just on the critical thinking, problem solving on that KPI 1. It's really something I kind of had a little bit of an issue with. I think several of us did, but we're really just looking at their ACT score. And if some kids don't test well, does this really tell if you have critical thinking and problem solving skills? I've met so many kids who do not test well, and they are the sharpest kids around. They have serious street smarts, but they don't test well. So is there something else that we could use to really kind of look into this? Maybe even a class that they would take?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Ferrant, for that question. Agreeing with everything that you said, I think that this doesn't indicate the whole aspect of critical thinking and problem solving, right? We agree. What we tried to do, we added in the AA degree to help capture, but also what we tried to do with the 9 attributes was kind of have a balance of rigor among them. Some of which you've surfaced today, that I think that in different iterations in the future, maybe the next portrait of a graduate, I think that we can certainly look at the rigor of how we're measuring these in the future. So the goal was within the 9 attributes to have a balance so that it was attainable to reach 5 of the 9 for our students. Of course, we want them to attain all the attributes at the end of the day. But we concur with what you said. There's more aspects. I think trying to find, which we will continue to explore, trying to find something that we can be consistent with and how to measure that is where it becomes an opportunity for us. And maybe it is a class. We added speech and debate, for example, for one of the metrics, which I thought was a great addition that this board made. And so we can have those conversations. Maybe there is a class that if you take a couple years or 3 years of that course, it could fall into that. But we'll continue exploring. The reason we went with these was the 85th percentile is what those entities consider critical thinking and problem solving. But again, I'm concurring with, I understand your sentiments. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think everybody else has really talked about most of everything else, so I appreciate it.
May I?
Superintendent.
Dr. Porter, did we consider if they earned an industry certification to be part of the criteria for this one?
For this one, we didn't, Dr. Vasquez, because we had it in the other category. But that certainly could be something that
would expand.
That would expand it.
Especially maybe some that are not going to take the ACT or SAT. And I don't think that there's an issue with us having same metric for more than one KPI. But let's take a look at that, because I do believe that if you earn those industry certifications, you're displaying critical thinking.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Member Douglas, if that was it for Member Brown.
Okay, thank you so much for this comprehensive work. It's great. It's wonderful. Thank you. As usual, you've done a lot of research. I just want to focus on the bilingual students. I know you're talking about bilingual abilities, but the bilingual students in general, because it seems like there's a misconception that the bilingual or student ESL just are not are impacting the school grade negatively. I heard a lot of the people say because they don't understand English, they don't they impact, it's not working. So I just would like to have a little bit research on that, because I know a lot of our bilingual students are excelling and are doing very well. And I just want to make sure that we dispel that misconception that there can be a problem in the school because they speak a second language. Obviously, I am one, okay? You can hear it. And, so I really would like to see numbers that really explain the impact that the student can have in our grades. I really would like to see that, please. And that would be great to
thanks, Ms. Douglas. We can definitely pull that information. I think we see in our data with our English language learners that they're thriving. I think that we see that across the board in our outcomes.
Yeah.
And so we can definitely show that outcome.
You. That would be great. I have another question about nutrition. Another question that I have about nutrition. We know that nutrition and success goes hand in hand. But I would like to have, when we give free lunch to the students, how much they excel, how the success, the numbers are different compared to when the student we have. Student cannot afford to buy their lunch, and the difference between those two to see, because we want to advocate that free and reduced lunch is very important to the success of our students. And so if we have those numbers to explain, maybe we have a point there in the legislature,
May I?
Yes.
We would not have current data because we have been offering free meals to all of our students for the last several years. Would you like for us to go back before we started that, or do you want, we unfortunately are going to cease that practice for the upcoming school year, and so we could take that into account with next year's assessments.
Which way? I think I would like to see, now that we do implement that free and reduced lunch, have those numbers in place. So when it change, we can have the other number and do the comparison to see, so we can have it to advocate for this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Douglas.
All right, thank you, Member Douglas. Member Byrd.
Thank you. Great work on this. I think it's really exciting to be able to see a second year in the work that's been done. And many of the comments I agree with. I love, I had actually written down industry certification, adding that for critical problem solving, because I'm thinking, nursing assistants have to constantly think on their feet. Construction is all about problem solving. So, there's a lot of those skills in those certifications as well. So I think that would be helpful there. I don't know if this is possible, but I understand the problem with students residing. We don't know if they've never attended an OCPS school that they reside in that area. Is there a way to look at cohorts of students, let's say, like we do with graduation rates, right? We look at a cohort of either kindergarten or elementary students as they are moving up in age. This class of kids, this percentage of those kids that started in OCPS are still in OCPS schools, or still graduating from OCPS schools, or are not. Is there a way you can use that as a metric as opposed to calling it resides? Because we really can't call it resides if we don't know. If these kids have always gone to private Catholic school in their community, but they live in one of our zone schools, we have no record of them in this metric. So we can't really accurately say that we're attracting them, but we could say whether or not we are retaining students in a cohort, right?
Yeah, I think that's something that we can definitely work with our student enrollment team to see what would be possible as far as a cohorted approach, or looking at students kind of entering in kindergarten, or even birth records, that type of thing, to see what information might be available to kind of create that base of students that we would be looking at.
Okay, just a thought. The volunteer hours and the metric for volunteer hours, I was kind of surprised about, because especially because we're counting work. That metric being so low leads me to believe that it's more of a reporting issue. We have a lot of students that are not recording hours. And that has always been an angst of mine. And I've always been really advocating for an electronic way to record either volunteer hours or the work hours. And I know that for many students that possibly don't get in the volunteer hours, it's because they have to work. And now that's why they made that change for Bright Futures. So I would love to see a way for us to increase that from 28%. I think as member, oh my gosh, I'm having such breaks. Thank you. I'm having these brain freezes today on names. As Member Vano said, Bright Futures is such a freebie out there for our kids that it's just heartbreaking that we don't have more in some of our schools getting Bright Futures. And this is just an easy part of Bright Futures, to get these hours logged. And I think those numbers should be way higher. I don't think it's that kids are either not working or not volunteering. Well, probably there could be students that are not volunteering, but I think that we probably, even if we just got the reporting down better, I think we would have that be a lot higher. I wanted to just point out our literacy, or not our literacy rates, our 90% 10th grade ELA literacy rates. Yeah, I think those are really important to see because we often hear, how do we have a 97% graduation rate and we have 50-60% literacy rate? We don't have 50-60% literacy rate. We have a third grade reading literacy rate at that level. So I think this is a really good thing to see that you've got 92% there who have met the 10th grade ELA requirement, I just am pointing that out because it's there's a lot of growth happening between 3rd grade and 10th grade, and that's apparent here, and that accounts for our rise in our high school graduation rate. And then the last thing, I'm going to go back. Sorry, I'm making you go back and forth on the presentation to the biliteracy. Is it also including the seal of biliteracy? Can you explain the requirements for that, or can you just tell how a student gets the seal of biliteracy?
We can send the requirements. I don't know that one off the top of my head. It's certainly available on the state's website. It's through coursework. There's a GPA requirement as well. There's the gold designation and the silver designation that have slightly different requirements as well. So we can certainly.
Yeah, and I believe there's the passing of an exam that they also have to take. We'll get the information to the board, but there are several components to be able to receive the seal biliteracy from the state.
Okay, so my question is around our English language learners. When students come here and they speak a foreign language and then they learn English while they're in OCPS schools and they test in their 10th grade ELA, are they not considered bilingual? Are we counting those students in this metric for our bilingual graduates?
So they would be counted in the metric if they took the CLEP assessment and scored a 50 or more. So many of them may choose not to do that for whatever reason, but that would be the way for them to be included in here.
Okay, I'm just trying to, it seems like, we have very high Hispanic population that I'm trying to understand where that gap is coming from, the 18 to, we have a 40% Hispanic population.
And Ms. Bird,
so why we aren't seeing a higher biliteracy rate there?
No, great question. I think there's opportunity here. We'll send the board the definition for the silver seal and gold seal, but for example, if you've earned 3 foreign language credits, that can be part of a silver seal. And so, it could be that students may want to take a different language than their home language, but I think there could be opportunity with that because it's also passing like an AP assessment, and students don't necessarily have to take a course to take an AP assessment, and so I think there could be opportunity for us with the marketing and just making sure our students know about the opportunity for the silver seal and gold seal because to your point. A lot of students, we know they're biliterate. Yeah.
Is that a member? Okay, thank you. Member Felder.
Thank you so much. I met with you guys on yesterday. So a lot of my thoughts I was able to express to you, but I just want to sort of reiterate, first of all, many of the discussions that my fellow board members have made. There were some of the observations that we talked about on yesterday, so they brought it back up. But I do want to just look at that last page on 58. You remember when I talked to you all about, first of all, the work that you all do with this endeavor is so impressive to me. And I really appreciate, of course, the color and how colorful it is. But I'm hoping that our members of our community, and not just school community, but just community at large that is interested in knowing what OCPS is doing with their students, that they see this, that this is available to them. And I see that you do have a QR code that they can pull up, because I think for the most part, the public needs to see, not just hear us talk about, but they need to see the hard work that this district and the people in this district do to make sure that we are really, really preparing our students for success. I am very impressed with what I see and the fact that there is room for growth. I'm so grateful. I remember that time we were back in the back and we were first developing this, and you allowed the board members, we came up with prepare, inspire, and probably, it was a while that we did this. So, and now I see it in full fruition. You really took to heart some of our concerns. I know that you would, but I want to thank you because it looks good, and I'm really expecting success, and I just want, I just can't reiterate enough that I would like the public, the news, they need to really see the hard work that the district puts in to make sure that we do what we promise, for our students. And I just want to thank you, and even the little nuances that the board members are bringing up for you to kind of hit and redo and kind of tighten up. I think that you're going to do it with no problem. I think you're going to do it with much success. And the next time we come around, we'll see something even better. But I just want to let you know how much I appreciate the work. And you really took into heart all of the things that we were considering when we were back in that back room with all those papers all over the wall, trying to come up with what we thought was going to work for the district. And I just wanted to acknowledge that and tell you thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Board Member Felder.
Thank you, Member Felder. I was up next, and it was a bit to that KPI one on critical and problem solving, because I remember us talking about this and wanting to balance something that was high fidelity, robust enough to prove that, and so that's kind of where we landed on the AA degree and the SAT, ACT score. I guess on the getting some CT degree or something like that, I know there's some that have multi-year buildup. I think I know we all do this at graduation, where students have the cord of when they have some of the certificates that they got, and we kind of ask them about it. There's students that are like, I did 3 years of nursing, or I built up to this certificate, and it's clearly something around what we're trying to do here, which is workplace readiness or some really building skills towards something, versus there are some students that are like, I took that class for fun. I took one class, I got that certification, and I don't, there's kind of a different intention and outcome there. And so I don't know if we have enough of the certification programs that are multi-layer that we can say, okay, there is some intention behind a student choosing that path versus a student that might just take it. It works in their schedule, that's interesting, but not quite, just balancing that, because I think I don't want us to lose the intention behind this measurement.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Board Member Salamanca. We'll definitely take this back to the KPI team and look at the industry certifications and see if there's any delineation between different industry certifications and take that into account as we look at it. So appreciate the feedback.
Thank you so much. And then just generally, I think this is such a huge level of progress on the KPIs and the portrait of a graduate from when I joined the board, honestly, that a lot of these numbers are actually much easier to measure, much easier to track over a period of time. They're never going to be perfect. That's what makes KPIs very difficult, but it's great to be able to actually see consistency and measurement across time. And so I just want to thank you for how thoughtful you've been as you've taken on the portrait of the graduate, the strategic plan, and working with the board and the superintendent. Truly, it's a very different strategic plan than what I had when I joined the board. Much more flushed out, a lot much easier to measure. It feels like there's numbers that we can actually talk about because we know what the number is, and now we're just in the weeds of is it good enough or can we be better, which is a great conversation to have. But I think before there were some numbers that all of us were a lot more confused about on what it even meant. So we're measuring the stuff that matters, and now we're really just kind of working on how to make them better. And so thank you for that work, Dr. Border and Dr. Vasquez, for leading the way. So last, Member Manos.
Thank you. This is a follow-up to what Member Felder was talking about, and it was the page 52, just the communication, because I see there's, plan touch points. But what I wrote under this is like, what does all of this mean? So I'm just wondering, is this that you'll be communicating with the board? Do you ever go out to the schools and talk with the, employees and staff and teachers at the school to kind of share the work that you're doing, just so they're knowledgeable about what is happening too?
Yeah, thanks, Board Member Vanos. I think we have great stories every year that you see with our graduates, and so and all of our students and staff. And so certainly tying that to the prepare, inspire, empower is something we can look to further as we go. But when I visit sites, I'm asking leaders about all the areas in strategy and infrastructure. And getting feedback. We also had the turnkey resources, which we asked district divisions and schools to utilize as they meet with staff, meet with PTA, meet with SAC, to keep the conversation going and keep it out there. We're also hopeful that the visualizations that the team created will be helpful for all areas across the district to see specific data points, which then create conversations like you've had here today and allow us to look for, the next steps ahead. But I think that, I think we do a great job across the district showcasing stories, but I think with our strategic plan and the conversation we had today, certainly there's opportunities for us to look at what comes next.
Okay, thank you. And I think the data is important, but I think also just people, seeing this is what we're measuring and this is why, and these are the specific things that we're looking at would be, if I were the person who was actually essentially responsible for implementing all of the different parts that I had a clear understanding, and maybe that is happening, but I just wanted to bring it up. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Vanos. Appreciate it.
Okay, I do not have any other board members queued up to speak, so I think that wraps up this part of the work session. Dr. Vasquez, anything else on this front?
No, we will follow up via email with some of the questions the board members had. Additionally, I think it would be very helpful to the board to understand the role of the KPI team leads, because that's one of the main ways we connect every department, division, to the strategic plan and gather input from them. And so I think also maybe giving them the dates of when I think they're meeting quarterly. The KPI teams are meeting. If they wanted to pop in, they could also see for themselves what that conversation is like and the engagement, because I think that would go or speak to Board Member Vanos's question about what does this mean? How are we gathering input besides the metrics that we're collecting on the impact and whether they are actually understanding this is what we are doing, this is our work. It's not just another checkbox.
Thank you. That wraps this up, concludes this, but Dr. Border, do you have anything?
Thanks, Board Member Salamanca, members of the board. We really appreciate the feedback and conversation. And to further what all of you already know, Ms. Felder, the power of public education is real. As a father of 2 daughters who graduated from OCPS and a current 6th grader, Orange County Public Schools, for all those listening, is the best choice. And we welcome you to OCPS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next item on the agenda for point 02 is in discussion of the superintendent's search. I believe we have about an hour and a half on the calendar. Not sure how long this is going to take, but do folks want to take a 5-minute break here? I think we have some wiggle room just to do that. 5 minutes? Folks okay with that? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back to get that started. Thank you. we're going to get started in 30 seconds. Okay, so we will now be speaking on item 4.02, which is the superintendent search. Fellow board members, we have open public comments starting at about an hour, and I know some folks have not had a chance to eat lunch as well, so let's just be mindful of that 1 hour timeline as we speak about this. But I will pass it over now to Dr. Williams, who has shared with us the timeline for the last superintendent search that all of you should have on your desk.
Vice Chair or Chair Salamanca for the board meeting, for this meeting. And board members, this afternoon I will discuss the superintendent search and begin with the 2022 search. In fact, I spearheaded that search. The timeline is I handed you the timeline, and it is also on BoardDocs for those that would like to follow along. The 2022 superintendent search for Orange County Public Schools was a structured 6-month process, once again a 6-month process, designed to identify a successor to lead the district. Following this search, the school board offered the position to Dr. Maria Vasquez, and this report outlines the timeline, procedures, and community involvement that characterized the selection process. The search process and the timeline, we actually had a first meeting similar to what we're doing today, February 15, 2022. We had a work session that was held to discuss the search, the parameters, and once again, as we're doing today. From there, we actually met again. And further discussion on the timeline, we looked at whether or not we were going to hire a search firm. And at that point, we actually looked at we hired FSBA to carry out the search. On June 28, 2022, the school board voted to offer the position to Dr. Maria Vasquez and authorize contract negotiations. And on July 26, 2022, the board officially approved the contract for Dr. Vasquez. And September 1st, Dr. Vasquez assumed her role as superintendent. Advisory committee structure and community engagement, a central component of the search, was ensuring that stakeholder participation through an advisory committee and community outreach. A superintendent advisory committee was actually created and approved on March 8, 2022. The community included one appointee from each board member. Additional representation was provided by nominees from OSPA, CTA, OCASA, the Superintendent Advisory Committee, the Foundation for OCPS, the Orange County Council of PTA, PTSA, and CTE. Vice Admiral Brewer from District 5, former LA Unified School District Superintendent and Jones High School graduate, actually chaired this committee. Community forums and surveys. Forums were conducted in every district to gather public input. Online surveys. If you look on BoardDocs, April 12, 2022, you'll see where we collected feedback from staff, students, and the community. Work sessions. Multiple work sessions were held to establish qualifications, salary ranges, screening process, and interview schedules for finalists. In addition, information on what was advised, advertised is also in your folder. We list the qualifications, contract, salary, application process, and deadline. Also, all information that is in the timeline, dates, and times are on BoardDocs, and that information is also included in your packet. So you can actually go back and look at every meeting, what was discussed, and all of that is actually in BoardDocs. It goes back to 2022, but everything is still there. Just as an FYI, other districts that have hired are in the process of hiring superintendents. Miami-Dade County just hired a new superintendent. Lake County Schools just hired a superintendent. Indian River County, actually the superintendent, David Moore, announced his resignation effective June 30th, 2027. Alachua County Public Schools, former Collier County Public Schools superintendent is now the interim superintendent and signed a contract through June of 2027 as they search for a superintendent. And Dr. Maria Vasquez has announced her retirement effective August 31st, 2027. Chair, This is an overview of the timeline that I handed to you. Once again, everything is in board docs. If you would like to go back and look at that. And in fact, to help you with that, if you look through what I've given you, the dates and the times are there. You can actually go back to 2022, look in board docs, and you will see every meeting that was held. Those that were appointed to the advisory council, you will see the dates and the times, the meetings that were held. So everything is there for you. So you don't have to search for it. Everything is there for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. And then I just want to really quickly note what's on the screen is a timeline. That has nothing to do with this. I just want to make sure we take this off the screen. There we go. For viewers online and also the media. That timeline was not the timeline that Dr. Williams was discussing while she read it. The timeline she was discussing is on board docs. That was a timeline from our previous discussion on the strategic plan. So thank you, Dr. Rams, for kind of giving the board. Some of the board members were present during the last superintendent search, and other board members were not. And as we know, an election just happened, so there will be new members joining this board who will be overseeing this process of 6 months plus, maybe. It looks like there's a couple of things I will put it for the board here. One is a decision on using FSBA versus other consultants. I think that's one of the decisions that the board has to make. The other one is for folks who were part of the last search. I think a broader question on what worked, what didn't work, what they'd like to see on this search, just so that Dr. Williams and team can take into account. And so I will pass it to Member Gallo, who has her button.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for this, Dr. Williams. It's going to be very sad that you won't be leading us in this endeavor.
That is correct. I'm enjoying this.
She's not even going to act like she's sad about it. Like she's not even going to pretend. So I was here for that. I think 4 of us were here for that process. When we hired Dr. Vasquez, I think that FSBA represented us well. I think they did a very thorough job. They were very reasonable. If we went with a large national search firm, it's really expensive, and it's money that we just don't have right now. And FSBA does have the capability to do a national search. And like I said, I felt like they did an excellent job last time. They were really, really good to Orange County. The only thing that I would like to see a change in from what we did last year is the committee. Back in 2012, I was part of the superintendent search committee when Dr. Jenkins was hired. And I was appointed to that committee by Joey Cadle. I think our chair was Tico Perez. And that committee was tasked with reviewing all of the resumes. So the committee really looked at all the resumes and then provided to the board their top 3 recommendations on who they thought would be a good fit for the stakeholders in this community, for our teachers, for our students, all of the above. And then the board still had the ability to pull in other resumes if board members wanted to, but that at least gave them a starting point that actually came from the community versus coming from the board. And I would like us to go back to that approach. I've heard from a couple of people that sat on the committee last time that they kind of felt like it wasn't the best use of their time because they were just coming up with attributes and not really kind of digging into the resumes. And because this is such an important position here in Orange County, I really think it's imperative that we do have stakeholders in the room from like CHFLA, from, our stakeholder groups, the CTA, our unions, and, just those type of people in the room to help us move us forward with this thing, along with community members as well. So that would be my only recommendation to change, is to really give more teeth to that committee and maybe make it a little bit bigger, because I think there was 27 of us on mine. I can't remember, but there was a lot of people that sat on that committee, and I remember myself, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And we looked at back then a couple of like maybe 20 to 30 different resumes. Some of them had misspellings. Some of them shouldn't have been applying for a teaching position, much less a superintendent position, but they did. But I just thought that was a great way to handle the committee. Thank you.
There were 15 on the committee that served when Dr. Vasquez was named. So you were saying you would like to expand that to make the committee bigger because the board actually wanted to make it smaller, but you would like to expand. And
Well, I just think that
Process.
more eyes that we have on resumes and really vetting the people who apply, the better off we are, because we're getting all kinds of different perspectives, and I think those different perspectives would be valuable for the board to hear why they chose the top 3 or who they chose, why they chose it. I think that would be valuable information. And since we're starting now, we have approximately a year. So, we do have the time implemented. I mean, whoever we hire, we need to hire. My recommendation or assumption would be that we would make that decision around the June timeframe, and that would give 2 months to work with Dr. Vasquez and get everybody acclimated with the new superintendent prior to coming on board. It'd be announced prior to the start of the new school year, because we really want to make sure that we give consistency and security to our community. But I'm just one board member, so it'd be up for the rest of the board. But that would just be my recommendation, that we give more teeth to the committee, that we hire FSBA because they did a really great job for us last time, and that we hire somebody around the June timeframe to provide consistency and start the new school year off right. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Member Gallo. Member Vanos. And then just for public's, information, the board members that were here for the last search were Member Gallo, Felder, Jacobs, and Bird. Yeah. Correct. All right. Member Vanos.
Thank you. I was not here for the last one, but I was paying attention.
I was sitting in the audience.
So I did want to agree with a couple of things that Member Gallo said. One, I do like the hiring in the June timeframe so that there is a transition period. So I'd like that idea. I also, I'd like the idea of giving more teeth to the committee, maybe coming up with the top 3 or 5 candidates or something like that. I honestly, I would like to see more educators on the committee. I think that would be really important. And then the third thing is, I wasn't here, so I can't, it seems like FSBA did a great job, but I think it would be worth putting an RFP out. I know Alachua County just did that, and they're in the same, similar financial situation that all public school districts are. And I think they actually made a different decision. And I'm not saying that we would, but I do think it would be important to at least get a couple of different proposals in, because I think there was some restriction on what FSBA, like something like they couldn't recruit sitting board member or sitting superintendents or something like that. I feel like I read, so I just think it would be valuable to put it out there to other groups, just to kind of see what we have. That's my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vanos. Member Felder.
Can I respond real quick? Thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't know per se about that rule, so I can't speak to it. What I can say is sitting superintendents did apply for the position. So while if there is something in place that they can't reach out to them, I promise you, if there's someone that is interested in being our next superintendent and they know that FSBA is our search firm, they will reach out to them. And if it exists, would only apply to Florida, not outside the state of Florida.
Do you mind if I add, in fact, during the time that we were meeting, at various sites, so University High, Jones High School, if someone said, I would like to, I think so-and-so would be a good superintendent, they actually reached out to that person. So I was at one, I believe it was at Jones High School, and they actually mentioned 5 people that they thought would make good superintendents. They reached out to them to apply. So whether we were at University High, Edgewater High School, or Jones High School, wherever we were, if someone that was there at that meeting said, I think this person or that person will make a great superintendent, whether they were sitting superintendent or not, they reached out to them. So the outreach, I thought, was really good. Yeah.
Thank you. Member Felder.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I was a part of that choosing of the previous, the superintendent we have now, Dr. Vasquez. And it is a strenuous type of endeavor. You just got to get your mind right for that. I personally enjoyed the fact to have FSBA to assist us in, as Angie pointed out, we don't have the money to just go out and hire these other people. We just don't. We're still struggling trying to make sure our teachers get money and insurance and so forth. So I would like for FSBA to be a part. And it's interesting that when I came on board, my first year we were getting a new superintendent, so now we're now getting another one. So the new board members, that should be very interesting for them. They're excited to do that. I also would like to engage educators. Not that people who are not educators will not have some good ideas, and I think they do because they're a part of our constituency. They know what feels good to them in terms of a superintendent. But I think when you look at the skill set of educators, knowing what a leader of a school district should be doing, I would indeed encourage educators because we need to remember that we are the 4th largest district in the state. 3rd now, okay, and just say we're the 3rd now largest district in the state, and we're the 8th largest in the nation. So whoever is chosen to lead this district, it is going to be a monumental task. So we need like the kids say, all hands on deck. We do need to have that. So I would encourage more educators and maybe even some people. I don't know if this is legal, John, let me know. If members in the cabinet, I mean, if they could be a part, because they have been working in the district. They know what needs to happen. I mean, this has to be done as well, as right as we possibly can do it, because we just got a lot that we're dealing with. This is an election year and a lot of things are going on. So we need to have someone in this seat who, number one, I can't say that word, but I want to say it, who has the, I want to say the other word, but I can't say it. Chutzpah. Who has the chutzpah to do it. I really want to say this other word, but I can't say it. Who has a chutzpah to run this district like it needs to be run. Okay, John, I didn't say it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Felder, for the restraint.
Madam Chair,
yes.
I think she wanted me to answer a question. No. It's chutzpah, but no, you're good. With respect to her question, Member Felder's question about whether or not members of cabinet and administrators can serve on the search committee, obviously the answer to that is yes. You all can formulate the committee however it is you want to formulate the committee and bring in constituents who you want to bring in.
Thank you, Mr. Palmerini. So I'm up next. I'm with Member Vanos that I don't think it hurts to get multiple organizations that could help us with the search. I think that we can see what their proposals are, what their pricing is. I wouldn't want us to decide we can't afford it before we even see their pricing. Maybe we can't afford it. Yeah. Very likely, but I think, other board members are coming in, folks haven't been on it. It's very much likely. I think we all have a very positive relationship with the SBA, but I would be supportive of opening up. And I think in particularly, given how much change there's been in Florida and all that, just making sure that national recruitment is definitely a strength as well. And so that's just my 2 cents. Same on I've gotten similar feedback on the search advisory committee. On the last one, the structure felt not as productive or helpful. It felt like they were already kind of just getting like very narrow work of what they could do rather than give real input into the type of superintendent narrowing it in. And so I also received the same feedback that I think Member Gallo mentioned. I think in terms of, obviously, I think we had included CTA, all of our bargaining units in this, so absolutely keeping that. Educators. I think it's important to include, call it a cabinet and leadership in this as well. One of the main things is priority is stability of this district and not turnover of leadership and folks who have been doing their job really well. So I would definitely think it would be valuable to have folks. One of the things that can be a risk when you get a new superintendent is you lose cabinet members and maybe some that you really don't. And so their input would be valuable as well, in my opinion. I found the community meetings are valuable, and I think that the business partners in general, I think this district works so closely with our business partners, CTE, all of that, that we need to bring them in as well as how they're thinking. Whatever superintendent comes in has to be able to build relationships and bridges with the entire community and get to know them. And so I think that would be really helpful as well.
And Chair, just as an FYI, the business partners were actually brought in as one of the groups that they actually received feedback from, what they would like to see in a superintendent. So that's just an FYI.
Yeah, and just in general, our stakeholders, faith communities, like the folks that really invest time and attention with our schools and making sure they have a voice. So that'd be really helpful. Member Ferrant.
Thank you. So just questions. Do we remember how much we paid FSBA last time?
Yes, it was $34,000. The others, when we searched before, were around 50.
Okay.
It's expensive, and that's one of the reasons why we went with FSBA. Their max at the time was 30, and the 4,000 that was actually travel, because we held 8 different events: University High, Lake Nona, Freedom High School, West Orange, Jones, Edgewater, Apopka. They were back. Actually, when we brought the business partners in, we did a district-wide community so that anybody that wanted to come in that was not able to attend one of the meetings at one of the board members' area, they came back for that. They met with the superintendent student advisory council, so there was meeting after meeting after meeting. So it was $30,000 and then $4,000 for travel. So it was $34,000, and the others at the time was double that.
Okay. FLVS just recently hired a new superintendent, if you will. I think it's the CEO or something. I think they call it differently. But they did not actually even use a search firm. So I would love to even just suggest that we look at that. That's one area where we could save funding, and we are already right here. We're all available, something that we could be a part of. And then I think it would be very important for the board that comes on to also be able to read through all of the resumes and not just take the committee's word for it. Because depending on who's on the committee and whatnot, there could be somebody that maybe the board really likes or doesn't like. And so I think that would be a really important aspect to look into. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ferrant. And I believe board members in the past process were able to pull their own independent resumes, not just the committee. So I think that, I think everybody is probably on the same page that board members will still have that discretion. Member Douglas.
Yes, just, I have mixed emotion about this. But anyway, I just wanted to say that for the short time that I've been here, I have been to different meetings with FSBA, and I've known a lot of the people that work with FSBA to be neutral people and just want to do the job that we ask them to do. So I really do support that we have FSBA helping us find our superintendents, and not only for the pricing, but also for who they are as an organization. So that's my view on it.
Thank you, Member Douglas. Member Byrd.
Thank you. As far as, well, first let me ask a quick question. If we did an RFP, I'm guessing is what we would do, for a search firm, I mean, that takes a while. How long would that take to put one out, formulate one, put it out, wait for responses, and do all that.
Probably soup to nuts, a couple months, somewhere in there.
Right. And so that's just getting a firm
Right.
and then not even starting the whole search committee and everything. That's going to put us close to the holidays, right? So I don't know if, how long of the process did we look at when we were doing all the community meetings? It was about, what, how many months?
6.
6 months. I don't know. I just don't know if we have time for that. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think that we would probably see the same result. I don't know that, I mean, I'm not an expert in this sort of thing, but I do not know that a job search for a CEO of a $6 billion operation can be done by a board. I believe that has to be done by, you have to have a firm, correct? Yeah.
And that's right.
So we have to do a firm. So, I mean, I just don't know. I just don't know if we have the time. I would ask the board to think about that, think about the timing, if we're going to have the time to do a search for other firms. And then my other question is, would the committee formation happen after we hire a firm then? The firm helps us develop the committee.
That is correct.
And form the committee.
That
Okay.
is correct.
All right, well then we can talk about that at a later point. My 2 cents is I don't have a problem including more educators. I think that's a great idea, but I also do definitely feel that we are in a different sort of time period where a superintendent in the next 5 years is going to be making more business-minded decisions with marketing decisions and running a district a little differently than, say, the goals of the last superintendent. While I still think, of course, obviously the education is the big thing, being the superintendent, they have to possess some other skills as well. And so I think that it would be really beneficial to have some other people from business communities that has expertise and has experience with hiring people that can handle the kinds of demands, especially the budget demands and the organizing this organization around budget cuts and figuring out efficiencies. I think that is going to take a very business-minded person as well. So I would like to definitely include more business people in that, but that can be decided after, obviously, with the firm. But I don't know about doing a search or not. I would like to hear from the board again and see what you think, if we think we have time to do it. If we do, if you think we do, then I don't have a problem doing it. I do think the FSBA would do a good job, but if it makes the rest of the board feel like we did our due diligence first before hiring FSBA, I don't have a problem with that either.
Member Felder.
Thank you. Member Byrd brought up something that made me think. The time factor. This is a little different than it sort of what it was. Seemed like we had more time, I think, than we do right now. I don't know, I just feel rushed. And I just wanted to ask this question. Maybe John can help me. Because as she said, and many of us feel that the role of a superintendent nowadays, especially in Orlando, Orange County, it's kind of different than it was, say, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It's a little different because a business-minded person would need to be the person running this board because of the kinds of things we have to do with money and budget cuts and of that nature. So, Mr. Palmerini, in the event, if our decision is to do like a long spell of having people look and calling companies in to look at various persons that are interested, and we run out of time, could we temporarily put somebody in the position till we get the superintendent? The reason why I'm saying is because there's a lot going on with this district, and even though Bridget, Dr. Williams gave us the timeline, we looked at it, but I just feel rushed right now that we have to get a superintendent and open up the school. The school's open in August. And so I'm wondering if we make the decision as a board to employ a firm to do this overall look, because if I'm not mistaken, a lot of people, they take a year sometimes before they look at a new superintendent. They're not doing it in months, but we're being sort of forced because, we have to have, that seat has to be filled. So in the event, if the board decides that we want to have this long time to really look and search somebody out, is it within our power to temporarily put somebody there until we find how do we do this? Because I really feel rushed. And this will be my second time choosing a superintendent while I'm on the board. I don't know if any other person feel that way, but I just right now I feel kind of rushed. Because we're in September, well, we're in August, but this week ends August, and then next week we'll be in September. And the superintendent that we have sitting is leaving in August. So, okay. Can we do that?
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes, please.
So, Member Felder, to your question, you all have the authority, should you, let's say we're in May of next year, you've gone through a process, you see candidates, you don't see a candidate you want, or you need more time to consider the candidate. And the superintendent that's currently here, Dr. Vasquez, says my hard stop is August 31st, 2027.
That is a hard stop.
That's correct. So
Yeah.
you all do have the authority to appoint on a temporary basis. You can say it's a 6-month contract, it's a 9-month contract, whatever the board feels is necessary, and hire somebody as what you would call an interim superintendent. Now, always remember with the term interim superintendent, interim doesn't mean that they lack the authority of being the superintendent. They will be the superintendent, but they're just not the one that has gotten the job permanently from this board. But if you get to a point next May or June and you all don't have a candidate and you need to hire somebody on an interim basis, this board absolutely has the authority to do that.
So if that happens, if that occurs, and the person that we hire as a board as an interim superintendent, okay, is it possible that we would eventually, we may choose that interim superintendent to be the superintendent, or that you don't do it that way? Help me understand that.
No, you could absolutely do that way. I'll give you an example. I sat in this role as acting for a couple months until you all made me the permanent.
Okay, and the reason why I'm saying is because I just want us to do our due diligence as a board to choose the best recipient for this job, because I think each of us is sitting up here, I think we care dearly about our responsibilities as board members, and we want to do the best to serve this community and this district as best we can. And I don't want us to rush into getting somebody because we have to fill a position. I don't want that to happen. I can't remember, but I think a person we were looking at, and they, anyway, they left. It wasn't about it from that we put on this board, but I'm just saying, I think when you rush, you run in hiccups. And we're too big of a district to vacillate with leadership. We need to find who we want and have the time, as board members have said, any means necessary, to look and do all that we need to do, because we have made an oath that we want to do the best for the people in our district. So I just wanted to make sure, if that happens, if we feel like we don't have enough time, can we do that? And you've answered that. You said we could. All right, thank you.
Dr. Williams.
I believe that question is in reference to Alachua County Public Schools, where they hired former Collier County Public School Superintendent, and she is the interim superintendent, and they signed a contract with her through June of 2027 as they search for a superintendent. So, so another county district is already doing that.
Thank you.
And Chair, if you don't mind, also in the back, and this is just a proposal, there's some dates in the back, if you don't mind, if you have the chance, if you don't mind looking at that. But based on the timeline that was used when we hired Dr. Vasquez, this is just a proposed timeline, something for you to look at, because you mentioned in the very back.
Right. So the last page of
page
that
in
document
your
where it
packet.
says May 2027 or June 2027 will be the appointment of the new superintendent.
Correct.
That's the timeline we're working
And
off
that's just for you to look at.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And yes, so interim superintendent is not out of the question if the timeline is not right. I do think finding the right person is more important. Member Gallo.
Thank you. I know that the timeline seems short, but we do have a year, almost a year, well, school year, to hire some. I do think that we need a search firm, and I'm not opposed to going out for an RFP if that's the will of the board. I'm wondering if we could expedite it. Like, does it have to take 3 months? I mean, is this something, it's one RFP. Is there any way to expedite it and get it out? I mean, we've done RFPs before for superintendent search. Isn't it something that we might be able to do a little bit quicker than that?
Assuming I'm not the head of procurement, so I'm not making commitments on their behalf.
Who is the head of procurement now? Is that Dr. Border or
Dr. Border.
Dr. Border? Dr. Border, would you like
could
to
this
weigh
be a
in?
priority of procurement?
We could expedite the process. What I suspect we would do is I would task my staff, Vivian Kokotis, to look at various districts who have done RFPs to see if we can get language that way and try to expedite drafting the document. Now, you want to put it out there long enough to where you actually get people to respond to it, right? And then we get the responses back. So you can do it shorter than 2 months, but I don't know that it's going to be significantly shorter. That it would probably be between a month-ish to a month and a half is your expedited version of that process.
Dr. Board.
Yeah, thanks, board members. I concur with what General Counsel Palmerini said. Typical timeline, atypical process, right? But typical timeline is 10 to 12 weeks. So we probably can push for 6 to 8 in that vicinity, but you would want to allow enough time, to get the response you're looking for if you're going that route, if you're going to do that route.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Border. That makes me a little nervous, and I understand that we can hire an interim superintendent, and I'm not 100% against doing an interim superintendent, but it hasn't worked well in other districts. It doesn't bring security to the district. It doesn't bring stability to the district, because when they're the interim, everybody knows that they're the interim. They're not the person, and in some cases, when you hire an interim, you hire them with them knowing that they're never gonna be the superintendent. And then you have to, what happened in Broward, and then they had to do a shift with Dr. Cartwright. It's just, I just feel like our community needs stability, and doing an interim superintendent does not give us the stability that we thrive. That being said, if we do a search and we get out people and the board's like, man, none of these are just, I don't think any of these are a really good fit for Orange County, that doesn't mean we can't re-entertain that idea at that time. But I wholeheartedly, I just think we need stability, especially with everything that's going on in the state of Florida right now, and just with the enrollment decline, we need to provide stability for our employees. And so my recommendation would be to go with FSBA. They did a good job, as long as they could do a national search. But I'm fine with doing the RFP. I'm just worried about the timeline, because if we we do need time for whoever comes on board as our next superintendent to kind of get acclimated, and we need time for them to spend with Dr. Vasquez, and her time certain is August 31st, which means we need to have someone in place by June 31st at the latest, or June 30th, because June doesn't have a 31 days, so June 30th. But I don't know. I think I'm up. I mean, it's ultimately this board needs to decide what we should do, but we need to decide, are we doing RFP or we're not? And I think we should decide that. We need a consensus today so that we can move forward. Thank you.
Yes, we do. We will not go to lunch until we have consensus. Don't worry, Member Gallo. I will not adjourn till then. Member Vanos.
Okay, lunch is on the line, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Stephanie's hungry.
I just,
I think we're all
she can hear my stomach. No, well, I just want to say, when I look back at the timeline from the last search, so the first meeting with the search firm was March 3rd, and it really was 4 months until the vote for the superintendent. So now if we want, basically to have that vote a month earlier, to kind of coincide with superintendent's timeline, it looks like if we kind of started by beginning of February, we would be fine, which I think gives us time. I just feel like in this era of, fiscal people, we want to be fiscally responsible. It's a really significant decision. I think Member Gallo has a great point. At the end of the day, many have used FSBA. That may be where we end up. And I could see that, but I just feel like we need to really vet it, even just for transparency for our community's purposes. So I think we can have time for that, and if we can expedite it, even better. But I would really just, I would, and I would also add, I think the fact that there is a vacancy here in Orange County is well known, and so I do think that there will be firms very excited to give their proposal, and I think there will be potential superintendents interested as well. So that's my opinion.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Member Byrd.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. I agree. I think that that this is pretty newsworthy, and I think it's been shared nationwide, and so I don't think that it's going to be a problem getting firms or applicants. So I think looking at the timeline, I did the same thing. It was a good 4 months. I think looking at the timeline that they've put in place, as long as we're able to get someone in here by July 1st to have time with Dr. Vasquez, I think that we're good. And I think we've got 4 months now until the holidays. If we could, hopefully set a goal of not hopefully, but set a deadline of, by the end of December, having a firm in place, and hopefully I would prefer to have a search team in place at that point as well, so they can come right back in January and we can start the meetings. I think 3 months, 4 months, we could probably do that. So I'm in favor of doing RFP. I think it's good for transparency reasons as well.
Thank you, Member Byrd. Okay, so we have 2 for RFP. I'm in favor also of an RFP with a clear timeline that before break we really finalize all things related to the firm. And the other thing I will say to the stability, I agree with Member Gallo. Obviously, stability of the district is really important. In the case of an interim, it's very unlikely, if not almost impossible, to call it the interim person being someone net new to the district. It'll likely be someone who's been in the district, operating the district with Dr. Vasquez. So I don't think that will shift too much. Even if we do start tapping into interim territory, it will likely be someone who's been working with Dr. Vasquez. So I'm okay with that. I think transparency is important. I think doing our due diligence here is important. Getting high quality candidates is above all else. I think running this process twice is probably the most unfortunate outcome, because that's a lot of time. So we got 3 RFPs.
I'm fine with an RFP.
Okay. I think we have consensus in RFP. Member Ferrand, I won't speak for her, but maybe you guys can check in with her and with Dr. Jacobs. But in today's present board members, we have consensus, so we can move forward though. Anything else you need from us, Dr. Williams, before we adjourn?
No, that is it. And just as a FYI, Mr. Bixler moving forward, will lead the search.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Bixler would lead the search with support from Dr. Williams, active support from Dr. Williams, and Dr. Harrell. We will be looking forward to that crunched, efficient procurement timeline to get this done. All right. With that, we are done. Thank you, everyone. See you all in. I don't even know. Where are we?
What time is it?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.